Since 2008, the Australian Cervical Cancer Foundation has been committed to the reduction and complete elimination of cervical cancer in Australia and developing countries. And to date, it has been incredibly successful. In its 10th year, we look back at its origins, its heroes, and its future.
The driving force behind having a foundation set up was through the work of Mike Willey and his wife Lenore. There were discussions with Ian Fraser between Mike and Lenore, and then I sort of came in on those discussions. So we then set about establishing the foundation, and we had no staff, of course, but we had an idea and had an incredible drive to do something.
It is an absolute success story around the world. We've got organisations like ours here in Australia, the Australian Cervical Cancer Foundation, that is funding or helping to fund relief agencies or other local health jurisdictions to immunise people in areas which might not otherwise be able to afford to immunise.
I've been involved with the ACCF now for probably about 3 or 4 years, and I'm really honoured to be one of their main ambassadors. I think it's an area we really need to spread the word, because we can reduce the amount of cervical cancer in Australia by just sharing that message with women.
Of course, none of this would be possible without the creation of the Gardasil vaccination here in Australia by Professor Ian Fraser, for which he was awarded Australian of the Year in 2006.
This was the first vaccine that was designed specifically to prevent a cancer. Fortunately, in Australia, our government was very forward-looking and introduced the vaccine as a schools-based programme, free of charge at the point of use, for all girls between the ages of 12 and 25, the year the vaccine first became available. And that's why Australia has always led the way in cervical cancer control through vaccination.
And with this breakthrough and the efforts of the ACCF, governments wasted little time in joining the battle.
So in the same way that we've followed the advice on Gardasil and the move to Gardasil 9 from Ian Fraser and the medical experts, that's precisely what we've done. With the new cervical cancer screening test. It's about a long-term commitment. It will mean that over the course of the next decade and the next generation, we have better screening, earlier diagnosis, and the potential for a less invasive approach.
We now stand poised to eliminate the suffering of victims and families alike.
Melissa was bleeding a lot, irregularly. And I just said to her, I think you need to go and see someone pretty quick about this. And after an ultrasound, they found a shadow, and after that they found a 75mm tumour on her cervix. Basically, it just spread for her body then. And they said 5 years went to 12 months basically, and 2013 she passed away.
Basically, it's too late to operate. We need to go in with really aggressive treatment now, and I said, is it, can you save me? And he said, it's so aggressive, and I just said, how long have I got? And he said, let's start with a year, if you're lucky. And that was 3 years ago now.
The options I had were a radical hysterectomy. The chances of having children would be no longer. But then he discussed that because of my age and because of the size of the tumour, I would be a candidate for a surgery called radical trachelectomy. I feel like the odds obviously were against me falling pregnant and then carrying to 35 weeks. I always thought that if we can get to 30 weeks, that would be a bonus. So to get to 35 weeks was excellent. It definitely is a miracle baby. I didn't expect to be where I am now and have a 8-week-old, that's for sure.
Marginalised communities here and internationally are the new frontier for the ACCF as its vision spreads globally.
Yeah, so in Australia, our rates among majority, so our overall population, are certainly starting to drop because of the screening and the Gardasil vaccination. But unfortunately, that's not the same in the Indigenous communities.
Cervical cancer is higher in the rural and remote communities because the screening rates are a lot lower. So women aren't being screened regularly, and it's when women aren't being screened regularly that cervical cancer can develop.
In late 2018, one of our ambassadors, Jana Pittman, is heading to the Philippines to participate in the cervical screening and treatment program of women in remote Filipino communities.
I'm really excited to be going to the Philippines because we're going to go and work in a really small village very, very far away from the centre of Manila, for example, where the rates of cervical cancer are much higher.
The ACCF is also integral to furthering the message that boys also need the Gardasil vaccination.
All 3 of my kids have been vaccinated. It's definitely something that I feel there needs to be more awareness as well.
Although we don't have a cervix and we can't really contract the disease, we can still carry the virus onto and pass on it onto women.
The fight against this deadly and preventable disease is one area where science and politicians can agree.
Well, we've had a 50% reduction in cervical cancer mortality rates in Australia since screening and then the first Gardasil came online. Our goal now is to head towards zero. The Lancet, arguably one of the world's most respected medical journals, has said that Australia can be the first country in the world to eradicate cervical cancer.
Cervical cancer will be eliminated in Australia. We now have modelled to show that between the combination of vaccination and continued screening, by 2035 there will be no more cervical cancer in Australia.